Hi guys, this is crazy, okay? Check this out. More than half of Americans say grocery costs are a major source of stress. That's 140 million people. And this isn't just a problem for low-income families, it's households from all different income levels that are feeling this pressure. Now, this is just a terrible, terrible situation for anyone to be in, to feel stressed and anxious about whether you can afford to put food on the table. So, first and foremost, if this feels familiar, take a deep breath. Okay, you can get through this. Now, there's lots of reasons why this is still such a big problem, even though inflation is supposedly coming down for a lot of us. And there is a formula you can apply to help you de-stress and take some of the pressure off when it comes to your grocery bills. So let's talk about that. Hi, welcome to Grocery Dad. Now, life has pushed me out of the kitchen and back into my little recording room, but we still have something really important to talk about today. And this new poll has 53% of Americans saying grocery costs are a major source of stress. That's more stress than people report on housing costs or healthcare or even what's happening to their wages. To help them get by, more and more people are using these buy now, pay later apps just to cover their weekly grocery costs. This is a growing problem across households of all different income levels. Now, I've worked in the grocery industry for more than 20 years now, and I can't recall this level of stress about food costs ever before. On the one hand, it's good that this is a big topic right now, and I'll explain what I mean by that. You see, groceries will be one of your top lifetime expenses. They're up there with things like housing and transportation costs in terms of what you spend across your life. But you can get Hot Pockets for like $1 each at Walmart. So for years, people thought, that's pretty cheap, it's no big deal. Now I sense the penny is starting to drop for more and more people. They're realizing that that isn't that cheap and it isn't good value, especially when you consider most of it is, well, just refined flour mixed with some industrial processing agents.
I want only your strongest notion.
So taking your food costs seriously is a good idea, but of course it's not good if it becomes a source of worry and distress. And for a lot of families right now, it is. So why is this happening? Well, there are probably 5 big things at play here. The first is that price tags in stores have not gone back down despite easing inflation. And I'm going to be honest with you folks, if you're waiting for that to happen, you'll be disappointed because they probably won't, at least not in any sort of significant way. The next challenge is the stuff we buy getting smaller. Stores don't want the bad press when the prices rise, and manufacturers don't want to foot the bill when their costs go up. So those sneaky sods make the stuff smaller, keep the price the same. That's shrinkflation, and we're noticing that because we have to go and buy more often. Another big factor adding to the stress is that wages still aren't keeping up with this cost of living that we're basically facing today. So you've probably just got less left over at the end of the month. And then we have higher interest rates, leading to bigger loan repayments, bigger credit card repayments, and that too leaves you with less money in your pocket for essentials like groceries. And then there's buy now, pay later. It feels smaller and easier than swiping that credit card, but it's still locking in payments for food that is long since been consumed. So week on week, these payments can start to overlap and they snowball quicker than with a credit card. And then your debt and your anxiety quietly start to build and grow and grow. Whatever the reasons for it, stressing about putting food on the table can be a really dark place to be. Not long after I left home and I started out on my own, I had nothing in the bank, like literally didn't have 2 cents to rub together. And I was spending faster than I was earning, and I was buying food on my credit card. I even took out a loan at one point to try and pay off the debt on that card. So it was not a nice place to be. And I remember I started thinking there was just no way out. It was very easy for stress and worry to spiral into something worse. And like I did, you start to think the worst about the future. You start to despair of ever finding a way out of this situation. One thing that I learned, and one thing that's for sure, that won't help make things better. So first and foremost, you must try and focus instead on where it is that you're trying to get to. And then you can start to make small steps towards that destination or towards that goal. And that is the point where this formula can come into play for you. Plan plus shop plus cook equals less grocery stress. If you can apply this approach or formula to how you shop groceries every week, you're going to cut your costs and you're going to save more money. Now, each of these elements, the plan, the shop, and the cook, breaks down into a number of practical steps, guidelines, if you like, which together help you to shop smarter. Now, today, I'm just going to touch on those that are, in my view, the most important to get right, to get done, if you're in a tricky spot with your grocery bills and if you're stressing about those costs of food. So we start with our planning phase. And the very first thing you're going to want to do is start building your grocery list around products and not meals. Now, there are 20 basic essentials that you can live off pretty much week in, week out and use to make dozens of different healthy meals. If you want to know what they are, go ahead and check out this video where I've listed them all out. But you're going to want to focus from now on the essential whole foods that you actually need, not the ultra processed packaged snacks and TV dinners that are actually really bad value for money and not very good for you either. Next up then is tracking your weekly spend. Write down on a bit of paper or on your phone or in Excel or wherever you like, but track it somewhere. Okay, not only is that visual reminder going to help you to stay in control and on top of what you're spending, it's also going to serve as encouragement, really, when you start to see that number tracking down. And that is a really important part of all this. Celebrate your successes, and that'll keep you motivated to keep going week after week. Now, there is some other stuff in the planning phase, but if you do nothing else, I recommend you start with these two things above all else. And then you move into the shopping phase. Now, this is where it can go wrong for you, okay, in quite a big way. The temptation is there in every aisle, the deals, the specials. This is where you've got to have a bit of discipline, but there's more you can do to help yourself. Okay, top of the pile for me would be to start shopping using the per unit price. This is the only way you can compare products and make sure you're getting the best value for money, particularly if things are on special. Don't be fooled by that shelf price ever again. Only shop using the unit price. And speaking of those promotional deals, well, don't. Okay, that is my advice. Contentious maybe, but unless they are for items that are on your smart list like fruit or veg or ground beef, don't do it. I've trained myself over the years really to shop the deals by exception, and I especially pay very little attention to those big displays they put at the end of the aisle, because very often whatever's on them is not actually the best value overall. So remember this too. Grocery stores promote products not because they're cutting you a good deal, it's because they want you to buy more. And if you're in a pinch, that is the last thing that you want to be doing. Now then, of all the things you can and really should be doing in store, my third must do is to shop those cheaper store brand products, right? Switching away from the big brand is just a very good way to save money without really sacrificing very much at all. Now, someone in the comments is bound to tell me you can't beat Heinz or Hellmann's or whatever brand it is that they love. But I say to you, give it a month. Okay, so anyway, you've planned, you've shopped. Now it's time to get yourself home and get stuck in to phase 3 of our formula. It's the cooking phase. And again, this is where, if you're not careful, things can still fall apart and you can still wind up blowing your food budget. So get yourself into a cook once, eat twice mentality. What does that mean? Well, it means you're going to batch cook those ingredients that you bought as often as possible, and you're going to pick out recipes that give you the most scope and flexibility to repurpose what you've cooked later on in the week. There's a video here covering off 5 of my favourite cook once, eat twice meals. So for example, you've got your roast chicken or your mashed potatoes that you turn into potato waffles a couple of days later. Now this serves 3 purposes, really. It saves you time in the kitchen, which has got to be a good thing, right? It saves you money by reducing the amount of leftovers that are going to wind up in the bin, and it's going to save you from getting that Uber Eats next Tuesday because you got bored of what was left in your refrigerator. And the final thing I recommend today is actually related to food waste. It's such a huge issue and a massive waste of money in lots and lots of households. So make a record of what you throw out each week. This might very well shock you to begin with. It did when I started doing it, but it's going to shock you probably into changing your habits once you realize how much money you are throwing in the trash. So folks, this is really something that is very concerning. Stress over food prices and being able to put food on the table. There's a lot behind it, and I'm afraid food prices probably aren't going to feel much better anytime soon. But that doesn't mean we have to suffer or feel anxious. By taking control of what you can and taking some simple practical steps, then I think you can start to turn the corner. But you know what? I want to know what you think. Does the plan, shop, cook formula add up for you? Which part is the one you think you need to work most on? And if you found this valuable, please give it a like, or even better, share it with someone else that you think might find it helpful. And if there's something else you think needs to be addressed around grocery costs, let me know in the comments so that we can cover it here on the channel. Before you go, check out this lot for more smart ways to save more on your groceries. And well, thanks for being here. Take care. I'll see you next time.